All right, so I'm gonna take one of the images that I have downloaded. Let's do, I'm gonna do this one. This one cracks me up. All right, so open Illustrator. We're gonna make a new file, 11 by 17 again. Just one artboard, 11 inches wide, 17 tall. We title it Project 3. My name. And we're not gonna worry about printing this, so I'm gonna do RGB color. I'm gonna change it to screen 72 ppi, points per inch or pixels per inch. I press create. Here's my artboard. I'm gonna click and drag my image over to the artboard. When you put an image, and you place an image into Illustrator, you can resize it. I'm gonna make it just short of the width of the artboard. I'm just gonna go ahead and center it. After you have it in place, go ahead and click on it, select it, and press embed up here. So this way you're not linking the file, it's going to be embedded in the Illustrator file. Okay. So right now I just have immediately one layer, and that one layer has this image on it. So basically the process for this project is we're going to be drawing the shapes over the image using the pen tool. So we're going to be heavily using organizing all these objects and shapes we create with layers, which you should be getting familiar with from project 2, making the shapes with the pen tool for the mandala. So I'm going to come down, I'm going to create a new layer, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lock this bottom layer here because I want to be able to create shapes, move them around on top of this image, and not worry about accidentally deleting it, not worry about accidentally moving it. It's just going to stay locked on the artboard. Go ahead and just bring over any image. You're going to have time to choose a Google Street View image after I go over this demo. But we're just going to kind of go over the process now. I kind of want you guys to follow along. So spend your time choosing a really great image after we're done with the demo. Just bring, it could be any image at all. It doesn't even have to be Street View. Just for the kind of getting the process down, just bring anything into Illustrator. All right, so once I have the image in here, I basically have to start with a strategy. All right, what am I going to kind of have as these bottom layers that are like larger shapes that I'm going to make first, and then which ones am I going to start making on top of those, and then more shapes on top of those possibly. So right now, this image, I've also noticed I've chosen a little more simple image. Like I'm thinking already about the shape of the water here, the shape of the pavement, the shape of the wall, the shape of these kind of hill mountain ridges in the background, and kind of an open sky. If you choose something that is like really, really complex with lots of details and signs and people and shapes, and you're welcome to do that, but it's going to be a lot of work. I'm just letting you know now. So you can absolutely find something that's a little more simple, that uses maybe larger shape areas and still do great for this project. Okay, so don't feel like you have to do something that's just kind of overloaded with detail. All right. So I've made layer 2. I've got layer 1 locked. Layer 1 is where I have my original image. It's locked on the artboard. And on layer 2, I am literally just going to select the pen tool over here. You can click on it or press keyboard shortcut P. And then I would not use strokes on the shapes because, let's say I have the stroke on and I'm like I'm just doing this real quick. It just can kind of get a little confusing seeing stuff with these outlines on. So I would turn the strokes off, which you can click here and press a little diagonal line, red line that says none. So now when I'm making shapes, it's just making a solid shape. Right now it's selected as white. I would go ahead and use the eyedropper tool to select a color from the image. So let's say I want to do this section of the pavement right here. I can press I, or I can just click on the eyedropper tool. And then I can click on the pavement, and whatever pixel it happen to be hovering over, it just changed the fill color right here. So that's a good start. Finding that color, then right on top of this image, it's locked, but on layer 2, I can just click, and notice if I bring my pen tool over to the other edge, that red line that's showing me the straight line, it's not exactly going along this shadow because it's not, the stone wall that's making the shadow is not perfectly straight. So you can just make several clicks along the different contours of the shadow, like this. And then once I come around, then I can come back over here and close out the shape. So now I've made this shape of the pavement here. I can move it around. Another option I can do, and this will, it's going to have a different effect, but if I click once and then click and hold the second anchor point, then remember, then I can make a curve, a Bezier curve between those 2 points. It's not going to be perfectly lined up with the shadow, but if there's something that's maybe a better curve, this is where you would move that here, let go, so it goes kind of curves along the shadow. But remember, if you do that, if you hold down and make that curve between 2 anchor points, then when you let go, it's made that path, that curved path, but now it's wanting to make another kind of smooth curve from this point here, so you can see how the curve changes. Well, I don't want a curve. I want it to be this straight line that goes along the bottom edge. So this is something very important to remember. Hold down Option and hover over that second anchor point and click once. Now that gets rid of that kind of automatic Bezier curve, and now I'm back to a straight line. Now I can come back over here, click, and I can close the path, and now I have this shape. And if I move something around by accident and I want to put it back, Command Z undoes that move, okay? let me do the same thing with the shadow. So I'm gonna press I, bring up the eyedropper tool. I'm gonna click the shadow. It's not perfectly black, so it's almost, but not quite. I'm gonna bring my pen tool up again, and then I'm gonna click this one. I will do just another little curve. Option click here. Now I have on Smart Guide, so it's wanting to see us doing this automatic snapping to here. You may or may not want that, so you can turn that on in your View tab. I click and drag, let go, option click. Now complete the path. Now I have the shadow and the pavement. Okay. I'm going to keep this up. Yeah, question.
Does the option click just make it fit to the line next to it?
No, so the option click takes away that automatic curve. So let me just show you what happens if I don't option click.
You can also double click on the point too to get rid of the basic.
Okay, so I don't think it used to be like that when I learned it. Yeah, you can double click. I was just taught as option clicking, so it's just muscle memory for me. Yes, you absolutely can double click. If you don't, let me show you what happens if you don't do that. Let's see, make a point here. I'm going to actually emphasize this curve so you can really see it more. So let's say I make quite a curve, and then I want to have a straight line. Let's say I want to have a straight line here. Well, it doesn't make the straight line. It continues that curve around. So I don't want this curve to be extended past the edge of the image. So that's where, yes, double click or option click on that point, and now it's back to straight line. Now, so that's when.
I think I just missed, so like when you were holding on that second anchor point, it starts to curve the line you just made?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's what I missed. That's what I was confused on.
Yeah. So if I make one point with a pen tool, if I'm not holding down, it's just making a straight line. When I click, if I click and hold down and then I move, now it's making a Bezier curve between the two anchor points that I can then adjust. So that's when, if you don't want that to continue, like let's say I don't want this kind of teardrop shape, I want it to be solid or a straight line, then option click or double click, and that turns off that automatic curve, and now I can complete the path with a straight line. Okay? Yep. All right, so that part might be a little bit easy because you're just making shapes over the image, but it gets a little bit more complicated when you're having to make shapes on top of other shapes. So we're gonna use this dolphin as an example. So let me go ahead and make the shape of the water. So there's not just a dolphin, there's umbrellas, there's this light pole, there's this kind of dock and other people swimming, all in the water. So if I just make one large water shape, it's going to be covering all of these details. So I'm going to grab eyedrop, select somewhere on the water. Let me just do this quickly. I'm kind of clicking around this umbrella, kind of a curve for the beach area. All right, so now I've just made the water shape. What you can start doing is take down the opacity of this object. So up here on my screen, and if it looks different for you on your screens, you can come to Window, Workspace. I'm using Essentials Classic. So these are the what shows all these options. I don't think they show these options on just your Essentials. So if your screen does not look like mine, it might be helpful to come to Window, Workspace, Essentials Classic. Then once I select this shape that I made over the water, over here I have opacity. I can click and I can drag this down, and I can change the opacity of that object I just made. So I can make it just slightly transparent or very transparent. Let's just keep it, I'm gonna keep it around 60%. Okay, so now I can see the object, and I can see the other details that are behind it on the original image. Sometimes it may help to change the color of this. So if, for example, this water, I use the eyedropper to keep it around the color of the water. However, if it's hard for me to see where my object is, I can always click on it, change it to some other color, just temporarily, just so I can really see the object so it stands out. And now I can create the objects for the other details, like this dolphin. But I don't think I really need to do that now. So I have to make this dolphin shape over this water shape. So that means I'm gonna have to make another layer. So I'm gonna lock this layer. Layer 2 has the water shape, water object. I'm gonna come down here, the square with a little plus sign. It says create new layer. So now I've clicked on that, and now I have layer 3. Now that I'm on layer 3, I can do the same thing. I'm gonna use my pen tool. Actually, let's eyedrop the color of the dolphin. And I'm pressing the eyeball here to turn off and on the view of these objects on layer 2. So I clicked on layer 3. I've selected the dolphin color. Come to the pen tool. I would suggest zooming in. Zooming in is going to be very important. Like, you're going to need to see the details. If I'm trying to draw this little dolphin shape from this far away, it's like I'm going to have to click so precisely to get this little fin, sliver of a fin. Get in the practice of zooming in, and go in far, because you need to see really the shape, how this fin and this dolphin beak, and how it all comes together. All right, so I'm going to click. A little bit of a curve here. I'm just going to trace around the shape of the dolphin. I'm just kind of going through this quick. Don't have to use lots of anchor points. You can use the curves that happen with the pen tool and you can edit them later if something goes wrong. So let me just go all around the shape here. So in a case like this, where the two anchor points are kind of filling in between the first one and last one, and I'm not seeing the shape of the fin, you know, we can just approximate it, and then we'll come back to edit it later. So let me just finish this. All right, so now this is the area that I couldn't see when I was making that shape. You know, and if it's a really complex shape, you can use just the fill temporarily so that you can, I'm going to take this down to like 0.5. Oops. I could have done that same thing with just a fill, and then it would have been, or sorry, just a stroke. It wouldn't have been filled, and I would have been able to see it. But if you do it this way, and you can't see it, so you just kind of approximate it, you can come back in, and even if you don't approximate it, you probably, on your first go, will not make a perfect shape, so you're going to have to do some editing. So I'm going to click on A, or come over here to the direct selection tool. Then this little white arrow comes up. I can click on any of these points that I made. Let's do this one. I can click on it once. If I don't click on a point and I grab it, it'll move the whole thing. So if I want to just edit one specific point, I click on that point, and then I can just move that one. Now I can click on this one here, adjust the handle, move it up a bit, and that's when we start getting it in shape. This got messed up right here. It looks like this had a sharp corner that I accidentally made. If this happens, you click on the anchor point with your direct selection tool. You could just try to eyeball it with adjusting, let's say, the handle on the following anchor point. Or let's say I don't want to do that. Let's say I like the way it is. I just want to change the curve of this. I can press Shift C, or here it's the anchor point tool. And then if I click once on it, it will remove that curve between the 2 points beside it. So if I click once, this curve will go away. So clicking, and now it's a straight line. But if I click and hold and drag, now it adds 2 handles, one on each side. Then I can come back, click A to bring up the direct selection tool, and now I can kind of smooth these out. I still would want to change this one. Let's see, it's a little bit too much over here. Let me bring it down. Let me make it a little more even. This one actually also needs an extra handle. So let me do the same thing. And these are going to be for the more complicated shapes that have, you know, multiple curves, angles, and just kind of just start tweaking it until it all kind of comes together. Okay? Now I can turn off and on that shape layer. You can also, let me turn the opacity back up to 100 for this layer. And you can kind of check your progress by turning off and on the original image. So now just, you can see I made the water shape, I have the dolphin over it, I have the pavement and the shadow. When I was messing around with the shadow, it I messed up the curve of this, so it has a space between the pavement. You'd want to fix that. I can click on the shadow, press A for my direct selection tool, click on one of the anchor points, grab the handle, drag it down so it covers that gap that I left. Okay, and from here on out, it's just gonna come down to detail. How detailed can you get? I can put in for this, this stone wall, I can select, let's say, the color of one of these little stones, and I can cover this up here. And sure, I could walk away, call it a day. Stone wall, top of stone wall. Yeah, I could do that. But if I want to go above and beyond, start adding complexity, then I start drawing each of these little rock shapes with the pen tool. Yes, that's tedious. There's no easy way around it. And this is what's, your life is going to be quite often if you go into graphic design. Just going over all kinds of little shapes, especially in illustration, even logo design, where logos are kind of like the simplest forms that represent a whole company or organization or restaurant or something. And you have to go in and start very tediously, perfecting all these little shapes, unless a logo is like a square or something. But this is going to be your life if you go into this line of work. To get details, you have to get messy with it. You have to get in there and just spend time. There's no way to cheat this. There's no shortcuts that kind of can be applied for everybody. Maybe your specific image has something that you could use, I don't know, some sort of effect to get a watery texture. Sure, maybe there's something specific for your image that you're using, but overall, if you're just wanting to make shapes, you just got to make them. And also, please do not, and for anybody who's thinking, well, I can just image trace. We're not image tracing. We're learning about layers, and we have to master layers and the pen tool. These are the essentials for any progress in this line of work. Okay? Any questions?